Hello, beautiful Libra. If you're hearing this right now, it's not by accident. This video found you because your soul is ready. Ready to hear something deeper. Ready to be reminded of something you may have forgotten. Let me ask you a question. Have you been feeling a strange stillness lately? Like something inside of you has shifted quietly but unmistakably? Maybe the world around you still looks the same. You go through the motions. You keep the peace. You smile when expected. But inside, there's a weight. A subtle ache. A feeling that something in your heart is out of alignment. If that resonates with you, you are exactly where you need to be. This is not just another horoscope. This is a sacred message. A soft whisper from the universe reminding you that you're not forgotten, and you're not broken. You are being prepared. And most importantly, you are the miracle you've been waiting for. Here on Zodiac Whisper Tarot, we dive deeper than predictions. We explore healing, truth, and personal power all through the sacred lens of astrology, tarot, numerology, and divine timing. And today's reading for you, dear Libra, is not a coincidence. It's a calling. Libra is the sign of balance, grace, and beauty, but let's be honest, holding balance in an unbalanced world can be exhausting. Especially when you're the one constantly adjusting yourself to make things work for everyone else. This video is a pause. A soft breath. A moment just for you. And I want to invite you to reflect. What part of you has been asking to be heard, but you've been too busy keeping the peace to listen? What if, today, you allowed that part to rise? Because today, we're opening a door. A door only you can walk through. And on the other side? Not perfection. Not applause. But peace. Real peace, the kind that comes from finally choosing yourself. The universe is saying, you don't need to fight to be worthy. You don't need to perform to be loved. Just come home. And before we move any further, let me take a moment to say this from my heart. Thank you. Thank you for being here. For every like, every comment, every subscription, you're not just supporting this channel, you're becoming part of a community that believes healing is sacred, and transformation is real. Your energy is felt here. Your presence matters. And dear Libra, you'll want to stay with me until the very last second of this reading, because what's about to be revealed is nothing short of divine. Now, tell me in the comments. What brought you here today? What synchronicity, what sign, what deep knowing led you to click on this message? And if you've been seeing the number 222 lately, the angel number of harmony, divine alignment, and soul calling, know this. It's not a glitch. It's your confirmation. So breathe in. Let the noise fade. And prepare to walk through the doorway that was always meant for you. Because the miracle isn't somewhere else. It's you. Sometimes the heaviest imbalances are the ones we can't measure on a scale. What you've been feeling lately, Libra, may seem like a loss of balance, but it's not that you've become unstable. You're simply beginning to notice what was never real balance to begin with. The weight you've carried in silence, in diplomacy, in choosing peace over truth, is starting to speak louder than your smile. And that's not a failure, that's awakening. As someone ruled by Venus, your natural instinct is to harmonize. To keep the air light, the energy calm, the people around you safe. But harmony isn't the absence of conflict, it's the presence of authenticity. And when Saturn comes to sit beside Venus in your sky, as it is now, he doesn't come to punish, he comes to clarify. He asks you, where have you been overextending in the name of love? Where have you traded inner peace for outer approval? These questions are not meant to burden you. They're meant to gently guide you back to a version of yourself that is whole, not just likable. The astrology of this moment presses on your 4th and 7th houses, the homes of your emotional core and your relational truth. These are not places of surface-level engagement, they are the roots and reflections of who you are when no one's watching. The relationships that were once your comfort zone may now feel constrictive. Not because they've changed, but because you've changed. You've outgrown the silence, the avoidance, the role of being the emotional moderator in every room. If you've been feeling distant from certain people, or even from your own sense of clarity, it's not disconnection. It's an invitation. The universe is pulling you back toward the truths you've ignored in favor of keeping the peace. And here's the deeper wisdom: true peace is never built on pretending. It's built on presence with yourself, with your needs, with what hurts and what heals. In tarot, the Justice card appears as a mirror. It doesn't punish, it reflects. And for you, Libra, this is a sacred reflection, a reminder that fairness includes fairness to yourself. You've been generous with your grace, your time, your understanding, but when was the last time you offered that same compassion to your own heart? The appearance of the moon reminds us that not all truths are spoken aloud. Some are whispered in dreams, or felt in the tension behind your eyes when you smile just to keep things calm. It's okay to feel unclear. You're not supposed to know everything yet. The fog will lift when you're ready to name what you've kept in the shadows. And then comes the quiet healing of the Three of Swords reversed, not the drama of heartbreak, but the quiet choosing of recovery. It's the moment you breathe out and admit, this still hurts, but I don't want it to define me anymore. That's where your strength lies now, not in enduring, but in allowing your heart to thaw. There's no need to rush this part of the journey. No one's timing but your own. Sometimes, the most sacred choice you can make is simply to stop pretending you're okay and start moving toward what actually is okay for you. You don't need to prove you're strong. You already are, because you're still here, still seeking, still open to the gentle voice of truth calling you home. As it's often reminded in quiet moments of prayer, peace doesn't come from controlling what's around you. It comes from surrendering what was never yours to carry. You don't need to fix everything. You just need to return to what is honest, what is kind, and what finally feels like home within yourself. There comes a moment in every soul's journey where doing more no longer brings more peace. Where constantly adjusting, bending, negotiating for the sake of harmony begins to wear away the very center of who you are. If you're a Libra, you've likely mastered the art of keeping things beautiful on the outside. But now, life is calling you to something deeper, a kind of beauty that doesn't require effort, only honesty. This part of your path isn't about fixing imbalance. It's about releasing what was never balanced to begin with. You may have told yourself, if I just stay kind, patient, and flexible enough, this will work out. But kindness without boundaries becomes self-erasure. And patience without reciprocity becomes delay of your own growth. Maybe there's a relationship you've stayed in too long, or a job that keeps draining your spirit, or even a belief about yourself that says you're responsible for everyone else's peace. When you look closely, the things you've been juggling might not be worth the effort they demand. Not because they're unimportant, but because they're not aligned with the you that's emerging. Astrologically, Libra is the sign of the scales, but the myth of Libra isn't just about keeping both sides even. It's about learning which side weighs the truth. Sometimes, real balance means putting something down entirely. The reverse Two of Pentacles reflects this exact inner tipping point. You've been trying to hold it all, but now your arms are tired, and your heart is asking a better question: what if I only carried what truly mattered? That question brings us to the Eight of Cups, one of the bravest cards in the tarot. It shows a figure walking away not because they're bitter, but because they've grown. It's a quiet goodbye. A spiritual decision. A moment of turning towards something more aligned, even if they don't fully know what it is yet. This isn't the dramatic kind of leaving. It's gentle. Clear. It's the choice to stop shrinking yourself just to stay in places where your soul no longer feels heard. There's power in recognizing that you don't have to earn the right to choose yourself. There's grace in stepping away from something that once meant everything, especially when you realize it now costs you more than it gives. You don't need a dramatic reason. You don't need permission. And you definitely don't need to explain why your healing matters. Even in scripture, we're reminded quietly and without pressure that peace begins not by pleasing everyone, but by being in right standing with the truth. Sometimes, that truth whispers, "This no longer fits." And you're allowed to listen to that. So here's something gentle but powerful you can do right now. Write down 3 things you've been trying to balance lately: emotional roles, expectations, relationships, anything. Then, ask yourself, are these things still in alignment with who I'm becoming? Or am I keeping them just to avoid discomfort? Be honest, without judgment. Often, the clarity we crave doesn't come from fixing, it comes from letting go. And if there's one affirmation that could hold you through this part of your journey, it might sound like this: I can leave with love. I can walk away in peace. And I owe no apology for choosing what brings me home to myself. Not everything has to end in chaos to be complete. Not every goodbye needs to be loud to be real. Sometimes, the most sacred step forward is the one you take in quiet certainty, knowing that by choosing what truly nourishes you, you restore balance not just to your life, but to your soul. Peace isn't the absence of conflict, it's the presence of clarity. You've spent so much time trying to maintain harmony with others that you may have forgotten what true harmony feels like inside yourself. But now, something is shifting. Your soul isn't asking for perfection, or for everything to be smoothed over. It's asking for permission. Permission to stop overcompensating. Permission to stop carrying the weight of keeping everything and everyone okay. Permission to come back home to you. Libra, this isn't rebellion. It's realignment. Choosing yourself isn't a betrayal of others, it's a quiet refusal to betray your inner truth any longer. The law of attraction teaches that what we nurture within becomes what we experience without. When you choose peace inside, the world around you begins to adjust. Not because you forced it, but because you stopped resisting who you really are. That's not selfish. That's sacred. The energies surrounding you now, astrologically and emotionally, are calling you into a new form of balance, one that's not performative, but authentic. And when the Temperance card arrives, it invites you to see this not as a time of extremes, but a time of integration. You don't need to swing from self-sacrifice to self-protection. Instead, you're being asked to listen gently, to blend the pieces of yourself you've been separating, the part that wants connection, and the part that needs solitude. The part that loves deeply, and the part that quietly hurts when love feels conditional. And here, the Empress shows up not as an outside figure, but as the version of you that is nurturing, creative, and whole even when she's quiet. She doesn't beg to be seen. She simply grows, rests, and allows life to unfold without rushing. That's your invitation now, to soften into yourself. To tend to your inner world like a garden that deserves sunlight and water, not just pruning. There's also a message coming through soft, almost shy from the Page of Cups. It may come as a dream, or a moment of inspiration you can't explain. It's the part of you that still believes in magic. Still believes that love can be gentle. That healing can be slow and sacred. That your softness isn't a flaw to fix, it's a compass pointing home. You don't have to be loud to be clear. You don't have to explain your boundaries in order to honor them. Quiet decisions made in alignment with your heart speak louder than any dramatic exit ever could. Even in scripture, there's a quiet reminder that peace doesn't always look like applause. Sometimes, it looks like silence you didn't have to beg for. Sometimes, it looks like waking up and no longer feeling the urge to please those who never saw the cost of your giving. So maybe, just for today, you try this. Whisper to yourself, I am allowed to feel safe inside my own heart. And let that be enough. If you've been trying to keep the peace at the expense of your own spirit, maybe it's time to ask a different question. What if peace isn't something you create between people? What if it's something you choose within yourself, and let it ripple outward from there? If that resonates with you, write it below. I choose inner peace over pleasing others. Not because you're giving up on anyone, but because you're finally choosing not to give up on yourself. Every once in a while, you feel something shift, not loud, not obvious, but deep and undeniable. It's in the way someone reappears after months of silence, just as you were thinking of them. It's in the way a certain number keeps showing up on clocks, receipts, license plates, almost as if it's trying to catch your attention. And if you've noticed those patterns lately, Libra, it's not just coincidence. It's confirmation. You are highly sensitive to energetic shifts, often picking up the subtle threads long before others even sense a change. This sensitivity isn't a weakness, it's a sacred skill. You were never meant to live in surface-level clarity. You were designed to perceive what's beneath, between, and beyond. That's what makes your Libra essence so powerful. Your intuition is less like a voice and more like a vibration. But sometimes, when the outer world feels chaotic or fast-moving, it's easy to doubt what you're sensing. And that's exactly why the universe sends signs, not to give you answers, but to help you remember what you already know. If you've been seeing repeating numbers, trust that they carry messages. The appearance of 222 is a gentle nudge. Harmony is returning. Not the kind of harmony where you bend yourself to please everyone else, but the kind where things finally feel even on the inside. When 777 finds you, know that you're entering a stage of spiritual maturity, a time where your choices must reflect your truth, not your past programming. And when you repeatedly see 1010, it means the old cycle is complete. You don't have to keep playing the same role to be accepted. You've learned the lesson. the only thing left is to honor it. Colors, too, are part of how the universe speaks to you. You may feel drawn to pale blue. That's no accident. This tone soothes your mental field and clears your intuitive channels. If soft pinks have been catching your eye lately, it's because your heart is ready for gentle repair. Let that color remind you that not all healing has to be hard. And pearl white? It's an energetic cleanser. It reminds you that your mind is sharpest when your intentions are pure and your boundaries are clear. And when we look at the cards aligned with your current energy, we find the King of Swords standing tall not as a warrior, but as a truth keeper. He's not reactive. He doesn't rush. He simply sees. For you, Libra, this is a call to step back from emotional clutter and trust your inner vision. You already know who's genuine. You already know what's aligned. Now it's time to act from that clarity. Next to him is the Ace of Swords, a breakthrough moment. A realization that slices through confusion. This isn't an external drama. It's an inner awakening. Like fog clearing at dawn, you begin to see things and people for what they truly are. This is not the time to ignore your gut. This is the time to listen more closely than ever before. You don't need to explain to others what only your heart can confirm. Quiet signs are still signs. God doesn't always shout. Sometimes, divine truth arrives as a whisper, a pattern, a color, a thought you can't shake. And when that happens, you're not meant to ignore it for the sake of logic or social comfort. You're meant to pause, pay attention, and let that subtle knowing lead the way. You don't need to rush to make sense of everything. Just trust that if something keeps showing up, it's asking to be seen, and what you're seeing now may be the beginning of the peace you've been waiting for. It's easy to believe that peace comes from fixing things. From adjusting every detail, holding everyone together, managing how the day unfolds, how others feel, how your life appears. But somewhere along the way, Libra, you may have mistaken control for care. You thought that if you kept everything running smoothly, if you stayed on top of every responsibility and emotion, you'd eventually reach a place of calm. But the truth is, trying to keep everything in perfect order is what's been quietly exhausting you. You don't have to hold the world together to be worthy of rest. You don't need to solve every problem to be allowed to feel okay. And perhaps the greatest wisdom in this moment is knowing that real happiness doesn't come from getting everything right, it comes from releasing the need to. The part of you that's always trying to mediate, to perfect, to soothe everyone else, that part is tired not because it's weak, but because it was never meant to carry that weight forever. What you truly need is warmth, not control. Softness, not precision. A quiet heart that knows it's still safe, even when life feels unscripted. Right now, your energy is asking for softness in how you treat your body. Simple, gentle rituals, a warm cup of chamomile or lotus tea, a few minutes of deep breathing in a quiet corner, or slow, mindful movement like yoga are not luxuries. They're restoration. The Four of Swords speaks to this directly. It's not just about rest. It's about conscious, intentional rest. The kind that says, I no longer owe the world my constant performance. In work, this might be the time to pause and ask yourself not what you're supposed to be doing but what still feels true. You're allowed to revise your direction. You don't have to follow the path you chose 5 years ago if it no longer matches your values today. the world changes. So do you. Don't be afraid to reassess. And if the old definitions of success were built on other standards, now is your opportunity to define what success looks like for your soul. With money, emotional clarity is key. Emotional spending, giving beyond your capacity, or investing out of guilt, these are patterns that don't nourish you. This is a good week to begin a financial emotions journal. Write for 7 days, not about numbers, but about feelings. What does money represent to you? Where do you spend to feel seen, safe, or loved? This process isn't about judgment. It's about returning to intentionality. You are allowed to feel secure, but not at the cost of your peace. And in love, you don't have to keep someone close by silencing yourself. The love that asks you to stay quiet about your needs, or shrink to make room for someone else's comfort, isn't truly love, it's accommodation. The Queen of Swords reminds you that you can be both soft and discerning. You can be kind and honest. And if the only way to hold on to someone is by letting go of yourself, that's not a relationship, that's a quiet kind of loss. There's a deeper kind of freedom waiting for you now. One where happiness isn't dependent on how well everything is going, but on how well you're listening to yourself. Even God doesn't ask you to have everything figured out. Just to keep showing up, gently, with an open heart and honest intentions. That is enough. You are enough. And sometimes, peace isn't what happens when you fix your life. It's what happens when you stop needing it to be perfect in order to feel alive. Maybe balance was never about holding everything perfectly still. Maybe it's about allowing what's real to move through you without resistance, without guilt, without the need to make it look effortless. Libra, you were not created to spend your life adjusting yourself for other people's comfort. You were created to live in truth, the kind of truth that breathes, that evolves, that sometimes shakes and stirs things up before it finally settles into peace. This journey you've been on through self-forgiveness, clarity, letting go, and choosing alignment over approval wasn't meant to be easy. But it was meant to set you free. You didn't come here to live someone else's idea of a balanced life. You came to learn what balance means when it comes from the inside. And now that you've walked through these messages, card by card, moment by moment, the next step doesn't have to be grand. It just needs to be honest. So ask yourself gently, right now, what is one thing I'm ready to release, not because it failed, but because it no longer speaks to the person I'm becoming? And what is one thing I'm willing to choose again, not from fear, not from pressure, but from that quiet part of me that still believes I deserve peace? The universe doesn't require perfection. It doesn't expect you to arrive with all the answers. What it asks is simple, that you meet yourself where you are, and respond with grace. That you stop negotiating your worth. That you stop apologizing for needing space, rest, joy, truth. That you trust your own light enough to follow it even when no one else sees it yet. And if anything in this message spoke to your heart, I invite you to take a moment and write it down. Name what you're releasing. Name what you're choosing. And if it feels right, share it with us in the comments below, even one sentence. Let this be your first step. Your declaration. Your new beginning. And if you feel the light returning to your heart even just a little, type it out as a blessing to yourself. I am Libra, and I am walking toward my inner light. Thank you truly for being here, not just as a listener but as a soul who's brave enough to look inward. Your presence matters. Your energy is felt. Every like, every comment, every moment you spend with this channel helps bring more light into this community. And for that, I thank you from the bottom of my heart. Please don't forget to like this video, subscribe to Zodiac Whisper Tarot, and share it with someone else who might need these messages. Because when we heal together, we rise together. And your voice, your journey, your light, they all contribute to something bigger than you can imagine. So wherever you go from here, may you walk with a softness that honors your truth, a strength that trusts your timing, and a love that starts and ends with you. You don't need to be in perfect balance to be whole. You already are.